Hi, Zizaran here, and I wanted to make a quick video talking about Scourge League now that it's a little bit underway and we've played it a little bit more. So as of this video starting, I have 280 hours played, which is not a shit ton for me personally for a league, but I think that seems like a reasonable amount of time to have played a league and like make like a bit of a review and a little bit of a talk. I have a very mixed amount of feelings. League-wise, this is like the coolest thing we've ever had. And now a lot of people are like, the fuck did he just say? And some people are hopefully understanding what I mean when I say that, but I'm not talking about the rewards now. I'm just talking about the way you engage with the mechanic. Amazing. Really, really cool. It's, in my opinion, the best league mechanic we've ever had in that way. However, I don't know, I feel like I was sold very hard on the whole like wrangling of items, rather the scourging of items, and that should be really, really strong. And well, I don't really feel like that's the case. I've interacted quite a lot with Scourge. I am level 55, so I've gotten all the useful nodes except these three. These are completely dead and there's no reason to get anywhere above 58. I feel like I was very heavily sold on the fact that you were going to be corrupting items. Whereas now, the feeling that I'm left with as a player is that you have to be an absolute lunatic to actually scourge an item that is good. So far, what I've been using it on is scourging items that I'm very, very, like, you know, there's a 1.2% chance that this is going to be a good item. That's what I'm left feeling with as a player. And that is a player that plays a shit ton, right? Very often, there will be convoluted mechanics that are maybe complicated to min-max. It might like, you know, it might take a lot of planning and stuff like that, like synthesis or early harvest, right? Then those mechanics were very clearly favoring people that were like either figuring things out or doing something special and unique, right? And then you, in those leagues, you would have people like me, like in synthesis, going like, this league is amazing. I'm making all these amazing, powerful items. And then more casual players that weren't doing those things would be linking me an item with like 3 reflect as they're implicit and being like, yeah, this league is awesome, dude. Whereas in this league, it's just insane RNG. Like, I get that you can Valorb an item and then Scourge it, but that's also like obviously increasing the risk. But I think it's very disappointing that they introduced a mechanic that is just worse overall than Valorbs. I want to get all the negativity out of the way early because for me, this league is this close to being the best thing they have ever put out. And it is so incredibly fixable that it is just infuriating to me that they're not doing anything about this mechanic. Because this mechanic is dead. Like, how many people are watching this video right now and their crucible looks like this? Or they're slapping in 5 links to get free divines. Like, I bet you that's a very large amount. Because they're probably going, fuck, I'm not putting any good item in there. It's 100% going to rip. Like, the amount of items I have that is useful, I got 1 with a keystone out of all. I think I've scourged like 15 6 things that I found. This 28 lightning rest, this is peak performance for Scourge League. And honestly, I think that's the best thing I've gotten, is things like that. 20-30 life here, 28 lightning rest, that's the best thing I've gotten. And very often, when you get something like that, it would also be a completely debilitating downside. Oh yeah, cool, I got 50% increased spell damage. -2 spell levels. It's like, come on. Like, they're too insane. And I'm completely okay with items bricking. But when the player is left with the feeling that you have to be a literal lunatic to put something in here and corrupt it, like, for a while, I was just scourging gloves. I would throw a greed essence on gloves, hoping to get curses. And I never got anything good. Like, so I've scourged, like, a large amount of items. And I'm just very disappointed. So I've just started getting divines from it. I understand that obviously mechanics like this, it's the same with the argument for talisman. Obviously, it is powerful for trade league. But the problem is that just such a large amount of friends I have that play such a large amount, like all of us were sitting on like 200 to 400 hours. We're all sitting there with the same feeling. And a lot of people in Path of Exile will argue, oh, the game is made for the 1%. But when even those players are sitting there with pretty much 0 to maybe 1 special or good item, then how the fuck is a casual player going to get a single item? And this is like the biggest problem and the main thing I want to discuss in the video, because I feel like they very often do a great job on currency leagues. You know, things like Ultimatum and Ritual, like leagues that give a lot of currency or just chill out unique items like Perendus. They're very popular because the player is getting something tangible. They don't have to like Synthesis and Harvest. Like a lot of people might be surprised that I'm bringing up Harvest because everyone's like, "Oh, Harvest was amazing. Everybody loved that." Well, it might be a little bit sugar-coated in your brain, but the first maybe month of Harvest, people were super critical. People didn't, well, first off, there was so much critical feedback about the garden itself, but also a lot of people didn't really understand early on how to make good items. So you would have people figuring that out quickly and getting rich, but then, you know, an average player would be really struggling to make perfect or good items. So that this always ends up happening with item mechanics. And I think Scourge is the worst we've ever seen of this so far, because not only isn't there's just not something you can really figure out, but it's just such a bad spread. There's several things that are hugely wrong in my opinion. If it's gonna stay like now, you should probably be able to scourge it a fourth and a fifth time, right? Tainted Chaos Orbs don't exist. I've found one in 300 hours. That would have been a really, really cool thing to be able to do Scourged Chaos Recipe. I'm kind of incredulous that they haven't put that in. It would have been really cool for re-rolling talismans. It would have been cool for re-rolling heist trinkets. That's what I did with my first Chaos Orb. I tried to re-roll a heist trinket. I didn't get anything good. And being able to re-roll those would actually give a use for Tainted Exalted Orbs, because they currently really don't have one. I think it's very cool. Like, obviously, a lot of people really enjoyed the Tainted Orb fusing. I think this is a very logical step forward. Obviously, they're removing fusings entirely in PoE 2. So this was a great way to experiment with, like, how much power are we giving the players when they can literally Valorb their gear and then link it after, right? Because in PoE 2, you can just Valorb your gear. It's been fairly enjoyable. Obviously, it means Jewelers and Fusings. I don't really use them. But that was neat. The bosses, still incredibly disappointing. Something that, in my opinion, should be really exciting and wonderful every time you encounter. First off, the, like, extra third slot. Still don't have that. I've killed, like, 80, 90 bosses. They do drop, like, the currencies. That part is exciting. But there's a couple of problems. First off, the scourged items, that I can sort of, like, forgive. I get that is most likely, well, hopefully it's only intended to be a mythic orb base, right? Hopefully they never at any point intended that people were going to look at, like, the 15 scourged items it drops, or the ones that drop when you're clearing them up, and actually look like, oh, this one has a good implicit and it's perfectly rolled. Excellent, right? That is never going to happen. Never sync did the odds on that, and it's just obviously worse than just finding a regular item. That was never going to happen. So I'm just assuming that the entire point of the Scourge base is dropping is for mythic orbs, and that is fine. If you don't know, me and Neversing made a specific filter blade thing that you can add on to any filter that only searches for fairly likely mythic orb bases. So mostly things of tier 3 rarity that are really good to mythic orb if you find a good implicit. So for example, Azimite Dagger. The items that it drops, first off, it's very rare that it actually drops a good item. Like, you know, something like a Combs Heart or a Headhunter. Like, obviously those are just insanely rarity. It is mostly dropping leveling items. I think I've had like 7 Karuya Wards and Araku Tikis and stuff like that. It's very much dropping like level 5 items. It does seem like it can drop anything. But then when it drops as well, it just... They either should make it drop better uniques that are crangled, or, which in my opinion, what they should do is remove the downside. Because there's no way for us to force a boss. We have no Scarab, no map device. There's nothing we can do other than hoping we get it on Scourged maps that we can do to actually force Scourge boss. So that would just make it a very exciting and awesome thing. If you actually get a good item, then it'll have 1 or 2 good upsides. Maybe even put it 3 on it and 1 downside. Like 3 upsides, 1 downside. Then that would make it really exciting when you drop a good unique. But honestly, for me, bosses are a huge disappointment. Crangling items are a huge disappointment. I really hope they fix it. Because let's talk about the positives. Like, it's such a smooth league mechanic. It's a little bit heavy on the spell damage side, so spell suppression became mandatory this league. But such a good league mechanic. The way we're, like, you know, clearing through the map and opening the crucible, and, well, if you're squishy, getting insta killed, but, you know, I'm tanky, so it's fine for me so far. Like, I really love the mechanic. It's straight up the best one they've ever done. The only one that I possibly would have liked better is Delirium, because that was even smoother. You run through a mirror and boom, you're in the Delirium world. It has some annoying things on bad layouts. So I actually, personally, I do prefer Scourge. And Delirium is forever tainted for me personally, because I had so bad performance issues during that league. So just, just fucking awful experience. There are new unique things. I love what you've done with like the tainted currencies. Those are really cool. Again, I wish Chaos Orbs existed. The Scourge maps. These are possibly too rewarding. I would way rather they be less rewarding, but that they would Scourge, well, 5 times faster. Like half as rewarding, but 5 times faster. And they're insanely rewarding at 10. They're very fun. They're an experience to do. Kind of similar feeling that Blight maps gave me. I hated the League Blight, but I really liked Blight maps. They were such a fun, like, different thing to do. And Scourge maps are very, very fun and different to do as well. What I would maybe like to see is that just an insanely increased reward if you're doing like a tier 10, tier 16. Because right now the meta seems to be doing tier 1 to 4 maps. A lot of people are doing Haunted Mansion or Silo and Tower. And that, in my opinion, is a little bit disappointing, right? It shouldn't be like Legion again. Legion, we were all farming tier 2 glaciers or tier 4 glaciers. Other than that, Scourging in general on everything should be faster. I would love to see a lot better like upsides. Either make it way more likely, put things on maybe tier 1 and tier 2 that like good outcomes can happen on tier 1 and tier 2, or give us 2 more Scourges so that you can do tier 4 and tier 5. I'm kind of concerned by how silent they've been. It kind of feels like they feel like, oh, it's great now. I don't feel like it's great. This is something I would love like a big discussion on. Do you guys feel like the Scourging of items is great? Because I don't know if they're aware of how bad it is. At least it is in my opinion. I would love, feel free to tell me it's fine. I don't think it is. So I really hope they can like fix it. This is so close to being my favorite league of all time. But right now it's probably like a 6 or a 7 just because of the very disappointing crangling. Honestly, yeah, it would be a 9 or 10 league for me with good crangling, with exciting crangling. But either way, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Sub if you like the video, but more importantly, try to die less than I do.